Shalom. This week we are again reading a double portion, two portions, Acharei Mot and Kedoshim, spanning from Leviticus 16 through and including chapter 20, because it's not a leap year, so we're reading two portions this week. And I'd like to focus on the beginning of Parashat Kedoshim, beginning in chapter 19 of Sefer Vayikra. And we find that Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, speak to the entire congregation of the children of Israel. Daber el kol adat b'nei Israel. Speak to the whole nation at once. And as Rashi tells us, Moshe Rabbeinu gathered together the entire nation to proclaim to them within their hearing this parsha. Speak to them and tell them, V'amarta alehem kedoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy. Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem, for I, Hashem your God, am holy. And our sages teach us that because this parasha contains so many details of Torah observance, so much of the nitty-gritty of the life of Israel, it was important to Hashem that the entire nation of Israel be gathered together to hear. And the main heading of this Torah portion is this call, this proclamation, this invitation, this declaration to be holy. And we've discussed before the concept of holiness, how it differs so much from perhaps the Western idea of what it could be to be holy like God. Here Hashem is commanding the children of Israel to be like Him, to be holy. And we've talked about the fact that our sages explain that this means that we are to be separate, just as Hashem is different, singular, totally incomparable to anything else in the world. He is unto Himself. So too the children of Israel are called to be holy like God. You shall be holy, for I, Hashem your God, am holy. Just as I am incomparable, there's nothing like me, so you also have to be a singular unit amongst humanity. And these laws of mine, these rules of the Torah, are what are going to be the tool to keep you separate and to be the manifestation of your sanctity, your separateness, your calling. Holiness here really being, yes, something that is of a spiritual nature, something that is of a higher calling, but because it is separate and it is only for God. Now, there is a principle that our sages relate to when they talk about this opening statement of this call for holiness. You shall be holy like I am holy. And that statement basically relates to the fact that there is a general idea that wherever you find a safeguard, a fence against promiscuity, against all sorts of immoral behavior, there you find holiness. And so the general introductory statement of holiness, of the call for holiness, is seen as a proclamation of the necessity to erect all sorts of safeguards within a person's life for making sure that one does not fall prey to all sorts of immoral types of behavior. But yet there's a very important principle here, a very famous idea in the beginning of this Torah portion that the famous Nachmanides Ramban talks about when it comes to this idea of the safeguarding of holiness, the idea of setting up all sorts of parameter fences so that one does not come into any sort of danger of promiscuous behavior. And the Ramban tells us as follows. He tells us, the idea is that the Torah has warned us against all sorts of illicit relationships, for example, which Hashem frowns upon, that are negative, that are counterproductive, that are selfish. And the Torah also prohibits all sorts of forbidden foods that are also, they go against the grain of the spiritual discipline that Hashem has in mind for the Jewish people. So on the one hand, we have this prohibition against immoral relationships, and we have a prohibition against forbidden foods. But yet, at the same time, we find that a person whose only person has his desires, a man is allowed to have a relationship with his wife, and a man is allowed to eat things that are kosher. So the Ramban points out that there is a certain phenomena which must be avoided and understood in order for it to be avoided, that essentially, since the Torah deals with humanity, since the Torah recognizes very much a person's humanity, and certain things are forbidden, but certain things are absolutely permitted as well within the framework of Torah, you could have a situation wherein a person could literally become a glutton, and a person could become something of a scoundrel with the permission of the Torah. And this is actually the language of the Ramban. Okay, there are certain things that are prohibited, there are certain things that are forbidden, and we're going to make the safeguard, and we're not going to get anywhere near those areas of immorality or forbidden behavior, but there are things that are permitted. A person's allowed to live, a person's allowed to have a sexual relationship with his own wife, a person is allowed to eat, everything that's permitted. So Nachmanides points out, well, what happens if you have a person who leads a life, a very hedonistic life, a very self-gratifying life that is, its whole goal really is just to satisfy his own desires. A person could have a goal which is very, very far from the mark of what Torah requires from a person. A person could have a lifestyle which is not bringing him anywhere closer to Hashem, because he is totally taken up with the satisfaction and of his physical desires and his immediate gratification, and you wouldn't be able to point a finger at him as doing anything wrong, because, as he puts it, as Nachmanides puts it in his very classic expression, he is a naval b'reshut Torah. He is a scoundrel with the permission of Torah. He's allowed to have a relationship with his own wife. It's holy matrimony. He's allowed to eat to his heart's content the food which Torah permits. So Nachmanides explains to us the real truth of what's going on here, and the real idea of what this call to holiness is when Hashem says, "You shall be holy like I am holy." Nachmanides explains to us that true holiness in the eyes of the Torah, yes, a person has to set up gedarim, safeguards, against coming close to what might turn into a downspin, into all sorts of immoral behavior. But the real sanctification and the real safeguard of holiness is not to abstain from that which is forbidden, but to abstain from, to a certain degree, even from something which is permitted. And that is the safeguard of holiness. In other words, a person has to know that life has a very high calling, and the purpose of life is for us to get in touch with our inner essence, for us to develop the fine nature of our soul, and for us to connect in this world with Hashem. Yes, we're very physical people, and Hashem loves that. That's the people that He created. That's the world that He loves. But our goal is to sanctify the physicality and to subjugate the spiritual over the physical, so that the physical is used to serve Hashem with joy and with enjoyment, but realizing the godliness in everything, even on the physical level. And thus, in that way, everything that's even part of our physical cycle and part of our very, very physical nature can be used for holiness and can be an instrument wherein we find a connection to Hashem. But when the physicality takes over, and when the desire and the drive and the lust becomes an end to itself, and it might even be permitted. After all, the Torah doesn't forbid us from certain types of activity. But you know what? It can come to a point where it takes over a person's life, and then the Ramban tells us that person is a scoundrel with the Torah's permission. All he cares about is his own desire. All he cares about is fanning the flames of his own desire. And so, when Hashem tells us, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani, you shall be holy just as I am holy. You shall be separate within the realm, the laws of the Torah. And yes, wherever you find a fence for arayot, for immoral behavior, you will find holiness. But the real fence that needs to be erected, and the real safeguard, is not against that which is forbidden. That's child's play. That's not a real temptation. That's not the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination of a real person who's really growing and getting closer to Hashem. The temptations of the average man are not the temptations of the person who's really growing closer to Hashem. That which the Torah forbids, it's obvious to us that that's wrong. But that which the Torah permits, we have to learn exactly in what proportion. We have to learn exactly how to serve Hashem with every fiber, with every aspect of our being, and sanctify that which is permitted, and set up the safeguards so that we don't go overboard, and so that we utilize our very nature in the service of Hashem. Yes, Hashem commands us as physical people to be physical and to serve Him in every aspect of our lives, and to utilize everything He's given us, and He commands us also to enjoy that which is permitted to us and to connect with it and to elevate it. But the real guideline of holiness is to step back and to set up the line of demarcation and the boundary and to sanctify ourselves. This is the beautiful expression of our sages, Kadesh et atzmacha b'ma shemutar lecha. Sanctify yourself even with that which is permitted for you.